You're recording? Okay. Pardon me for not having this pre-made into a fabulous PowerPoint yet. I didn't have any time to do that. Today I'll be doing another manga that's caught my interest. It's called Zipang. I guess that's how it's pronounced. Zipang. Don't ask me how that what that translates in Japanese. I don't think I've heard that at all. Anyway, this manga, it's a shonen manga written by a guy named Kaji Kawaguchi. I've never heard of this guy at all, and here are his other works, if anyone is interested. Spare the Sun, this isn't ecchi, that does not. Okay, yeah, actually these are seinen. This is a genre of young male adult audience manga. And today, Zipang, it's about a crew of an Alberg cruiser in the JSDF Navy in the modern day. Here we go. Here is the title screen. At the beginning of the story, the crew of the Mirai, that's the name of the vessel, JDS Mirai, they're going off to perform a police action in Ecuador in assistance of the United States Navy for some reason. I believe it was for a natural disaster, ensure protection of civilians in the war in Ecuador. Okay, it's a police action going on over there. At their home port in Japan, of course, there's some war protesters. Protesters of the deployment. They're not necessarily there for war. Along the way, the crew performs training drills and all the sorts of regular duties that are found in ships of this kind in modern navies. And our main character that the story focuses on is this broad chin dude, Yosuke Kotomatsu. Yeah, he's the XO. Really, that's a really high-ranking position. He's second command to the captain, basically. Anyway, over here, this seems like a very tense moment, but this is just a simulated exercise going on, and they're all testing their weapons and everything here. Anyway, in the middle of this voyage, they're a pretty fairly average crew, fairly mediocre, and they're not really conditioned. This is like one of their first deployments, or they've never actually been in any serious operations. They've only done drills and everything on this vessel. And wouldn't you know it, something on their way over to Ecuador, when they're halfway across the Pacific Ocean, something weird happens. What the bloody hell happened? We don't know. They get hit by a lightning bolt. Oh wait, that's just a message. They get hit by a lightning bolt. Something weird happens, and next thing they know, that's warp 2 page. I think it was 39. They find a bunch of radar contacts, and they almost run into this giant thing, which is the battleship Yamato battleship Yamato from World War II of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Through some freak accident of nature, this modern day Aegis equipped a destroyer has been warped back in time into the middle of World War II, between the war between the United States and Japan, shortly before the Battle of Midway, around that time, and the story just takes off from there. Realizing where they are, and figuring out what to do about it. Throughout the whole course of the story, they try to remain, as soon as they get out of this situation from being in the middle of a battle fleet in the middle of the ocean, they do what they can to stay away from the course of history. They try not to alter too much because, of course, things go wrong. You run over a piece of coral, eventually monkeys take over the world. So they do their best to stay aside from that. But as they research what's going on with them and learn more about their predicament, they're unable to recreate the circumstances that allowed them to go back in time in the first place. They have no clue what happened to them. They have no clue how to get back. And eventually they run afoul of the navies on both sides, the Americans and the Japanese. The Americans, by getting all these radar contacts of the WWII and figure out all those activities, fear that it might be a secret weapon by the Japanese. And they try to bring it down. And the Japanese Navy itself is in turn afraid it might be an American a secret weapon. Naturally, and eventually, the Japanese Navy learned that the WWII is actually is Japanese, but not part of their navy. And along the way, they come across this fellow who's from the Imperial Japanese Navy. I forget his name. Kurosa, I think. He is an officer in the Imperial Japanese Navy. He is rescued from an airplane crash that otherwise would have killed him. Through the ship's archives, they find out that he was supposed to have died in that crash. They bring him aboard, they heal him without knowing that at first, and eventually he finds out where he is and what's going on. And more things going on with this manga, So, it spends a few chapters going through everybody just getting seated where they are, and eventually what the crew of the WWII is trying to do when they finally get situated is attempt to end the war between the United States and Japan with as few lives as possible, few lives lost as possible, and they go through a few operations that try to do that. At first, that does all right, but things like these get complicated over time, and they get stuck with these political web going on with the Imperial Japanese government, basically, who are when they eventually find out what the WWII actually is, are shocked about what it is and what it means for them as a country in the future. And at some point in the story, they realize that the grandfather paradox is not in effect. If anyone's unfamiliar with that, it means if it gets its name from if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, you will not be born. One character in the story finds that out brutally so. This character finds it out a little bit sooner, with his own survival and realizing that the ship is still there. So with that in mind, those who realize this believe that not only are they going to try that they're free from the history being changed on their side to the point where they don't exist, but it's now their world. They can go ahead and affect the situation in a way that however they choose is right. Of course, without any fear of chimpanzees taking over America, that sort of thing. And it goes on sort of like that. There's actually a few sparse action scenes over here. It turns out the Mirai, which is an American-designed destroyer, it has the weapons it has on board, the cruise missiles and the Sea Whiz guns that it has on it, make it the most powerful ship in the sea, basically, even more than any aircraft carrier or battleship from either side. And that, its initial profile causes both sides to underestimate it at first, and that causes significant casualties on their side. With that kind of power on their side, that also plays on the morals of the crew inside the Mirai itself. What the story really is all about, to me, is how the crew. The crew, they're modern Japanese people, part of a self-defense force, and they signed up into the Navy to become, to basically to defend and protect. They're not the ruthless killers like the other Navy men on both the Imperial Japanese and the United States are at this time. And during the course of the story, they learn. They wrestle with, they have internal conflicts with that directive of being a self-defense force, using violence and firepower only to protect themselves and protect others, versus what it is to be a warrior, a soldier, as all the people around them are, people who are willing to give their lives to gain an inch of ground against the enemy. And it's that philosophy, that modern philosophy of the Japan in the modern time that clashes with the philosophy of the Japan in the past. Because what they're trying to do is trying to shorten the war and reduce the number of lives. But what they don't seem to be realizing is that it's not preventing, it's not stopping the cause of the war, which is the politics of the Imperial Japanese. Basically, they're basically a pro-fascist. They're basically a quasi-fascist, quasi-racist. They're a racist, fascist regime, and it was through that war, through the end of World War II and the two nukings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki and everything, that basically transformed Japan into the people into building the ship and building the people that they are now, and with that they're trying to wrestle with that kind of conflict between, well, these people are Japanese, but they're also not like us. They're aggressive, they're nationalistic, and everything that we've done so far to try to stymie them isn't changing the opinion of these people who started the war in the first place, and they're still, in this aggressive stance against the United States and still conquering neighboring countries, and with that in mind, they're forced to make decisions. That's just the publisher. Make decisions that have to deal with that, which unfortunately goes beyond the mere firepower of this of their destroyer. It's really more of a human conflict that they're contending with. And so far that's about it. This manga was made into an anime recently, and I have no idea if the anime went to the end of this manga. Right now it's on up to chapter 7, or volume 7, and the manga is ongoing, but has not been updated in a while. And by the looks of it, I have no clue if they're at, towards the end or not, because it's only been 1 year real time for these people, for these characters, and they still have about another five more brutal years to go of war, 3 to 5 more years to go, whatever. And so there are probably still going to be some more stories about that to come. And towards the end, it seems to meander away from like the main characters about what they're doing. So it's introducing a lot of historical characters that you'd only know if you're into Japanese history at all. And it just seems to meander towards this end that we have up to right now. But it's still a very promising manga. It's got a mix of that political action and military thriller that I personally like. But it's just that with stories like these, you can't help but to feel like it seems like the author's opinions. If anyone remembers my review of Gate a couple years ago, the author of that manga was very. It turns out he's from the military. He's from the JSTF, and it's very pro right wing, pro militant on that one, and it seems to affect the story in that one. Believe it or not, the story in that one is a lot lighter than it is in the original light novels. So you're getting a more balanced version in the manga, and sometimes the manga has its moments where you just pull your hair out. This one. It seems to be a little more naive. It's interesting to see these 30-year-old characters who have these morals that seem to be a little more simplistic than you would expect for someone of that age to be in the military. But that at the same time, that seems to be they're a product of their culture, because they're not Americans. They're the way they fight, their mission statement is not the same as ours. And well, to us, some of us that might, to some of us who are like from the military or anything, that might come off as naive, but that I think that really underscores the character drama that's going on in this manga about the modern Japanese thinking of peace and restraint away from violence versus how they were in the past. And it kind of makes you think that some beliefs, some terrible beliefs like that die very hard. And to literally kill that kind of thinking, you literally need to kill the people who think like that. And that's what unfortunately World War II brought us. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. It's available on MangaFox currently. It's unlicensed, and you can go ahead and read it to all it's worth. And it ends in sort of a cliffhanger, but may as well. It seems to trail off towards that end. I hope it picks up and concludes sometime or another, because at 7 volumes, even for a story kind of like this, I just hope it will end. Just like that was a review. Thank you.